and support.
Sorry, that was me.
No worries, no worries. So we want to make sure everyone feels really included and supported, and that we bring through that whole culture in everything that we do. Also, we need to imagine the future. So imagine the future of what it's going to look like after you've gone through this digital transformation. Imagine like what's going on. Do people work together easily? Have you got more new funding streams? Have you got more volunteers? What is it that is your dream in the future, your goal, your aspiration? And that's how then it's going to help you kind of reverse engineer it. I did have a poll set up to see who has a digital strategy currently in place, but I think we'll just avoid any polls that seem to be sending everything skeways. So if maybe people could put in the chat box if you currently have a digital strategy in place for your organization, just write yes or no. That would be really useful. Because a recent study was done by the Tech Trust, and in that survey, they discovered that over half of community groups, charities, organizations, and people in the third sector did not have a digital strategy in place. And when they dug a little deeper into why this was, they discovered that the most common reason for this was a lack of skills, a lack of training to implement it. So before you even, fixate on what the goal is and the goal setting, we need to know where it is we want to go. We need to know, do we have the skills in place? And if we don't, how are we going to do that? Once we have all that in place, then we need to start telling our story. Telling a great story is going to be key to so many different aspects of your digital marketing. And third sector groups, community groups, and organizations, they have it a little bit easier in this sense than some businesses, because you guys all have great stories and you have so much opportunities for content. So in comparison to businesses, sometimes it can be really hard to come up with the content or come up with great, interesting images and things that they can share on their social media. So having a story is going to be part of it. This is going to feed into our online presence. So our online presence is actually the cornerstone of everything that we're trying to do. People often say, well, I'm on social media, or I have a Facebook page, and that's it. I'm out there, I'm present. But it means so much more than that. So I have a little story for you to demonstrate what online presence is. So recently I was looking for a pair of yoga pants, and I typed it into Google, and then I was really surprised to see that the top 4 organic results were for one company alone. So what that looked like was, in the search, they had links to their Amazon page, there was links to their website, and there was links to a review page. And so they had a really, really strong digital presence. And this was a brand that I'd never, ever heard of. And so on the back of seeing how strong that digital footprint was, it made me a little curious. It made me want to go and search out that brand specifically and see, well, what more have they got out there? So then I discovered that they had a Wikipedia page, and plus all of their social media pages, blog articles and everything else. They had a really, really huge online presence. So that buyer's journey and that customer journey isn't unique. Most people are going to be searching for things, but when you have a really strong and healthy online presence, you're building trust, you're building credibility. You're also reaching out and connecting with people who maybe haven't even heard of you yet, and you're getting your message out there so that they can then choose to connect with you, they can choose to volunteer with you, donate to you, or fund you. So this is why having this online footprint is so much more important and so much bigger than just simply having your Facebook page or being on Instagram. Which we're going to get into now in a minute. There's so much strategy and so many other things that you can do. But first we have to look at what it is we want to achieve. So we need to be really specific about this. And what I encourage people to do is to set SMART goals. So what are SMART goals? Well, it's being specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timely. So what I like to encourage people to do is to take out a blank piece of paper and write the word SMART down vertically down one side, and start coming up with what these goals are, and be really specific about what that goal looks like, and drill down into it, like to find like infinite detail. So if you say, you know, I want to engage more with people on social media, that is not actually specific enough. What does engagement truly look like to you? Does it mean you're going to have 5 new comments this week? Does it mean that you're going to get, 5 new followers every day? Or you're going to, you have to be very, very specific about what that is, because that allows you then to be more measurable. You'll know easily then if you've achieved it, and if you haven't achieved it, you can see why you didn't, and if there's anything that you need to change. Also, the goal needs to be realistic. So there's no point saying, we want to grow our following to 100,000 followers if like you've never posted anything on Facebook or Instagram or whatever social media you're on, and you're saying that you want to achieve that in a really short period of time. So be realistic with your goals and be timely. So put a time on absolutely everything. And this is so beneficial for so many reasons. So when you have a time on something, you have this whole time frame. It changes your mindset that you are more committed, you're more dedicated to meet that target. It also gives you that ownership over something, and if you don't achieve it and you have given this commitment to the other members of the board or the group that you're in, and you don't deliver on that, you can look at, well, why? What went wrong? What can we do to adapt that timeline and ultimately achieve that goal? So SMART goals is really, really important to start with, before you go gung-ho into delivering your digital plan and strategy. But where are we going to deliver this? There's so many different channels out there, and there's so much pressure on people to try and be everywhere at once. And that's just not possible, or at least it's not possible to do that really well and effectively in all places. So what I would encourage you guys to do is to look at, well, where are your audience at? So we said at the start of this that marketing is showing up where your audience is, and lots of people in your audience are going to be on the internet. But now it's time to get really, really specific. Where are they on the internet? Where do they hang out? So and look at your customer journey. Look at who you're trying to talk to. Are you trying to talk to service users that might be potentially interested in availing of the service that you're providing? Are you hoping to recruit volunteers? Are you hoping to recruit funders? And where do those people go? So you may be more likely to recruit funders if you're showing up on places like LinkedIn, for example. You may be less likely to get exposure for whatever it is that you're doing. If you're launching an event, or if you're showcasing something that you guys are doing, if you showcase that in the wrong place, you might get less exposure. So one really good place for exposure for events, or to pick up with national press or international press, or to try and raise your profile and raise the online presence, is Twitter. And Twitter often gets overlooked by businesses and by people in the third sector. So we'll come back to Twitter in a few minutes, because I have some great strategy tips for you on that. But just to bear in mind, don't overlook or disregard things just because they haven't worked before. And this also connects then back to being specific. If you look specifically at what it is you're trying to achieve, and then try and see the channels that are most relevant and the ones that will give you the most return on that investment that you're putting into it. So the investment of your time, or the investment of, if you haven't got the skills within your group, if you're bringing in someone to do it, you want to see that that is going to be the most beneficial use and help you achieve what your goals are. So how do we improve our online presence? Well, here's a quick list, which we can send out to you afterwards. I've put together 16 things that we can do to build our online presence. So building an email list, we'll drill into these in a little bit more detail in a minute, but to go through it, we'll build an email list. We've got mastering SEO, which is search engine optimization. We're going to create value. We have to be active online, analyze results, adopt new forms, start a social media presence, make a website, produce content, personify your brand, experiment with online advertising, research influencer marketing can be really good for improving your online presence, being competitive, develop relationships, show up where your audience is. And when you've done all that, automate your processes. So automating your processes is definitely something that I am a big advocate for. And I'm going to show you some tools in a minute of how we can do that. So some tools for the job. Firstly, I would say the primary tool that you guys should be looking at is a website. And if you don't have a website or you don't think you need a website, I would encourage you to really re-examine that perspective. Your website is going to be the cornerstone of your digital presence, of building that brand, because if you are part of any organization or group, you are part of a brand. You want to build the brand, you want that brand to be easily found, you want it to be present, but also you want to be the owner of your own castle. So I often have conversations with people where they come to me and say, I don't think I need a website because I have Facebook or because I'm on Instagram. That's where we put our message out. And to that end, I would say, while it is great to be on those platforms and to be providing value for your audience there, you ultimately don't own that platform. You have no control over how things get displayed or if things get removed. And I see this a lot with community groups or people who have set up like individual groups within Facebook to maybe engage more with maybe their volunteers or their service users, that they may set up siloed kind of private groups within Facebook. And then they get messages like your group has been archived. Or the newest one with Facebook is if you aren't seen to be a moderator of the group that is active enough. A few months ago, they brought in this new algorithm that will automatically reassign the moderator role to somebody who they deem more active. So essentially, you can create a group, build an audience, and then get booted out of your own group that you've been building for your brand, which is definitely not something that you want to have happen. So this is why, another reason why having your website is so essential, because no matter then what happens on any platform, your audience, your funders, your volunteers, anybody who's interested in you, or like the yoga example, anyone who just stumbles across you on the internet and is interested enough to search you or to find out more, they will have a credible, reliable place where they're getting all of the content that you want them to get and you have complete control over. This is a screenshot I took from the DLDC's website, just to give you an example of how having a really good, clear message on your website is really beneficial. So on this example, you'll see up at the hero section, they've got calls to action. So they've got get started and contact. And so these aren't things that you can do through your social media necessarily in a really visual way, but they're things that if you have your own website, again, you have total control. You can affect the decision making about what you want this action to be. So it could be go fund us, it could be, volunteer now, whatever action you want people to take on that particular campaign that you're working on at the moment. Another tool for the job, as we all know, is our social media. But what does that actually mean? So where are we going to show up? I did have a poll there to see who's on what social media, but we're neglecting the polls now. So I'm wondering how many people are on social media and what platforms you guys are on. TikTok, we've all probably heard of lately. It became even more popular throughout lockdown. And so many businesses, community groups, charities, and organizations are doing great with TikTok. So there can sometimes be this reluctance and this hesitance to join a new platform, particularly if you're struggling to keep on top of what platforms are already out there. But I would say to you, don't dismiss things. And this comes back to that whole piece at the start about the culture of what we're trying to do. So if you decide as a group that you want to build a digital strategy, and you're facing kind of reluctance from people in your group or in your team, this is about the whole, if you've been working really hard at that foundation stage of building the blocks, of working on that culture and showing the people in your group and your audience that this is valuable, that you can show up for your audience in a valuable way in the places where they are, then hopefully that culture that you fostered will negate any obstacles or barriers to jumping onto new platforms. So our social media, we'll dive into how we can automate that in a few minutes. But if we're looking at things like Instagram, for example, there is, let me show you here actually, I'll take it up here on my phone. On Instagram, if you open your Instagrams, there's hashtags. So if you're on Instagram and you follow anyone and you want to search for hashtags, so let me do this. Oh, sorry. We'll come back to that. It's not working. So hashtags in Instagram is something that you can search for, but also it's what your audience are searching for you. So often we have this this idea in our mind that we'll tag posts in our Instagram feeds with what we're doing. So we'll say, you know, hashtag, community event, hashtag, opening a launch of a garden, or like whatever that may be. But that might not be where your audience is. So to give you an example of this in a business sense, there was a car insurance company that I was working with some time back, and they said to me that they wanted to go onto Instagram. And a lot of people were saying to them at the time, well, why would you go onto Instagram to sell car insurance? That is crazy. You know, nobody's going to go to Instagram to buy car insurance, right? But what they had realized was a lot of their audience actually hang out on Instagram, and they were, putting up their lifestyle pictures and things of what they were doing. The car insurance company were very clever about their tactics. They were so clever about where they were using their hashtags. So instead of putting up hashtag car insurance, because let's be honest, nobody is going to go and search hashtag car insurance, they started hanging out exactly where their audience was. So they started hanging out and putting in things like hashtag first car, hashtag driving lessons, and suddenly they were the only people in that market showing up exactly where the first time buyers of car insurance who have no loyalty to other brands or haven't built up, driving credit, like no claims bonus credit and things with other brands that they were going to then stay with. They had a captive audience because they were showing up in the Instagram feeds of first time drivers, people taking lessons, people who've just bought new cars or just passed their test. They were the only ones there. And so think creatively, think of how you can show up in your audience's news feeds and stand out. So an example of this would be a really, really memorable campaign that was done was the Ice Bucket Challenge. And that worked for so many reasons, but they created this hashtag, they created a movement that just led to this chain reaction of people jumping on board and wanting to support the charity, but also to be part of the experience. And so when you're working on your social campaigns and your social media, it is so important to add value and to tell your story, but also to create something that people can feel a part of and then adopt and join in on. So when you are posting on your social media, whether it be your Instagram, whether it be your Facebook, your Twitter feeds, don't just focus on hashtags and things that are specific to you, your brand. Look at that planning stage when you were doing your SMART goals. Look at who your audience is. Look at exactly what it is you're trying to achieve and how you can show up and be different and stand out amongst everybody else in your industry. Email marketing is another huge thing. So I think emails, particularly in the third sector, is something that is so underrated and underutilized. It can be used for so many things. For example, if you've built your website and you've invested in that and somebody makes a donation, you can send an email to thank them. They can be on your mailing list where you can then keep them up to date with things that you've got going on a continuing basis. you can foster that relationship with them, that maybe they will be inclined then to donate again. Or if they're a volunteer, you can be showing up and adding value in their inbox, featuring volunteers, giving shout outs and giving shout outs and acknowledgements to people that are doing really good work within your group. This relationship building that you're doing and this value that you're giving to people in their inbox by also sharing things like other relevant information from the industries that you're involved in, or other causes that are relevant to causes that you are working towards, will really, really help you stand out, because not many other people are showing up in this sector in inboxes. So you're, again, creating relationships, you're telling your story, and you're showing up where other people aren't. Consistency is key though. So if you are putting together your social media strategies, if you're putting together content, or you're working on telling your story or being on whatever platforms that you want to be on, it's really, really important to do it consistently. So what I mean by that is two things. If you're going to be on, say, Instagram, for example, there's no point only posting something once every 6 months or once every 2 months. Similarly, if you're posting something of a particular style and you have maybe somebody else logging in and they're posting something that looks completely different, that's going to kind of be a bit of a barrier to people who are there to consume the content that you're putting out and that story that you're telling. So you want to be visually consistent with the message and the branding that you're putting out there. And you also consistently want to show up for your audience. So if you say, oh, well, you know, we're going to do a live video on Tuesday mornings, it's about being really consistent and being there on those Tuesday mornings and doing that live video. Or if you say, when somebody signs up to your email list via your website or via your social media, and you say, I'm going to send you an email once a month with updates of what we've been up to this month, it's about being consistent and actually following through on that and actually doing it. This is a really, really great tool, Post-a-Plan. They have a free tier, and then they also have a lifetime package that I think is about $50, and that's it, a once-off payment for life. But with Post-a-Plan, what you will be able to do is you'll be able to automate so much of your social media. You'll be able to also connect it to your Google My Business account, which is really, really important. So when we were doing that little list a few minutes ago about the how to be present online and ways to be present, and we had said that showing up in SEO was important, so that was search engine optimization. If you are actively posting to your Google My Business account, that will also help with your SEO. It will, because you're literally feeding the machine of Google, you're telling it about different things that are coming up. So Post-a-Plan is a really useful tool, that particularly for community groups and organizations where you maybe don't want to be having one person responsible for posting everything, because what happens if that person is sick or, you know, is on holidays or can't do it, and then suddenly all of the social media posts get, you know, they just stop, and then we're not consistent, and then we're falling down, and then things kind of we end up sometimes in a cycle of, you know, things grinding to a halt. With Post-a-Plan, you can have multiple people logging in quite easily. You can assign people to different tasks, and you can allow then people to access different assets. So if you want them to be able to access, for example, the Twitter and the Google My Business account, but not the LinkedIn page, you can do that. Sorry, I think there's some mic feedback there. So there is, of course, other tools. So you probably have heard of Hootsuite. Buffer is another great one. If you only are on Instagram, Planoly is another great one. I think that's $9 a month. But the downside of that is only Instagram. If you want to just do Facebook, Facebook also have the Facebook Creator Studio, which is entirely free, and that will link Facebook and Instagram, and just those two. But again, if we're talking about our online presence, our digital presence, what we really need to do is, like the yoga pants people, we need to be showing up in as many places consistently as possible, and using a tool such as Planoly will enable you to do that. The great thing as well about this is they'll give you a content calendar, so you'll be able to see different kind of like international, I don't know, coffee day or Earth Day or World Book Day. You'll know in advance which days are coming up, and you'll be able to then create content, maybe that is, if it's relevant for your group, you might be able to create content that's part of that. So that's a really useful tool to automate some of your systems and processes there. What a lot of people don't realize as well is Canva has a discounted package for not-for-profit organizations. And Canva itself is a brilliant tool for scheduling some of your social media. So not only can you use the Canva tool to design the social media, you can then use the Canva tool to schedule it out if it's connected to your, they've just released an Instagram connection. So if you have it scheduled to your Instagram and your Facebook, and I think they brought in LinkedIn recently too, or or at least they're working on that. You can schedule to those platforms, and you don't have to then worry about downloading some of the things that you've created and then uploading them. Now, of course, Canva does have an entirely free account, but you're limited to what images and things you can use there, and you can't schedule. So if you want to have more access to premium elements and the scheduling feature, definitely Canva is a great tool, but also great because they give that discount. Form building is really a very useful thing to be able to do and to capture. Obviously, we have tools like Google Forms and things like that. That's going to be handy for groups to gather information. But Jotform is a really useful tool as well. And again, they have quite a significant discount for not-for-profit groups. So Jotform will enable you to do so much. So if you are a group that really, really don't want to invest in having a website, maybe you just don't have the budget for a website right now, Jotform is a really, really good solution if you want to have like one simple page with information on it. And they also give you the ability to take payment. So maybe you're a group and you need to take payment for something, and you're not sure of a secure way to do that, a way that's going to be relevant to your brand or on brand, because especially if you're taking payment now, there's so many kind of scams and things going around that people are quite reluctant if they don't see something that's branded to you and relates, 100% in a credible way to yourselves, which is normally via your website. This can be an obstacle. Now, Revolut has been a great tool for people to get around that with, transferring money and sponsorships and donations. But if you want to be able to direct someone to a dedicated landing page, Jotform can connect with Stripe or with your PayPal. So you can take payments or sponsorships or anything like that via this. It's also really, really great if you are managing anything where you need to collect data. So if you have maybe people wanting to register to volunteer with you, or maybe you're looking to have people register to sign up for your services, you can have them fill in a simple form that you've created on Jotform, and it'll be all branded to your organization. And it's all GDPR proof then. It's held really securely, and you can use the, they've got like a PDF viewer tool where you can view the information and download it into Excel files. So it makes the admin so much easier for yourself than to on the other side of things. So Jotform is really recommend Jotform for businesses and community groups in third sector. Twitter lists. So as part of building our digital online presence, I think a lot of people overlook Twitter. And a lot of people don't realize that there's certain hashtags and lists and things that you can do on Twitter that will kind of fast track you to what you're trying to do. So on Twitter, there is this function now where you can build a list, and the list can be public or private. And what I mean by that is, say you have a Twitter account and I log on to your Twitter account, I can click to see the lists that you've built, if they're public, and if they're private, then I won't be able to see the ones that you've marked as private. So what is a list and what is the value of having one? Well, you can create lists of pretty much anything you want on Twitter. So you could create a list of maybe people that you want to engage with more, people that maybe are potential funders that you want to keep an eye on and follow what they're putting up on Facebook, or maybe you want to remind yourself to engage more with them. You could build a list of other groups that are relevant to your interest. You could create lists, you can create lists of anything. So what a lot of people do then as well is create lists of PR opportunities. So they create lists of people who are doing maybe features or articles, or people who have an interest in the same area that you're operating in. This way then, when you log into your Twitter, instead of kind of getting bogged down with the noise, because while Twitter was great, it is so fast and messages can be lost in the matter of minutes. If you've curated a list, when you log into your Twitter and you select to view whatever's on that list, you will only see a feed of the people or the content that is on that particular list. So it really, really slows down the traffic on the list that you've created. The other thing about Twitter is they also do hashtags. So if you were to look up hashtag journal request, for example, or PR opportunity or PR request, you will often find news organizations looking for businesses, community groups, or people in various sectors to speak on different matters. And so it's always worthwhile checking in to see, is anybody looking for some information on something that you and your group can give value on? This will hugely, hugely help your digital presence, your online credibility, and your the social proof of what you're doing, because that's part of what, and your SEO. So that's part of that whole journey of when somebody kind of is looking at what you're doing. If they see that you've been linked in different articles and things, not only is that going to keep the search engines and the algorithms happy because you've got these links happening, but you are giving that social proof to your audience. They're seeing that, oh gosh, well, this group have been mentioned over here, and they've provided an article for this organization or this newspaper, so they must be, you know, really good at what they're doing, or they must know a lot, or they must have, you know, you're providing more value, you're showing up more. So this kind of feeds the whole machine of that digital marketing. So this was my reminder to talk to you about the hashtags for Twitter. Google Ads, a lot of community groups and organizations, not-for-profits, do not realize that Google have an ads grant for not-for-profit groups. And what they do with their ads grant is they will give you a pot of money to go and advertise something that you're working on, to put your message out there and to reach more people. So if you are working on something, or maybe you spent lockdown putting together a project that you're getting ready now to launch, it's always worth, if you're a not-for-profit, to connect with Google in relation to this ads grant. So they not only give you the pot of money for the ad campaign, but they'll give you like a dedicated contact person who will go through the whole thing with you. So it's not like you're going to have to manage this all on your own, or you're left in the dark. They will go through this whole process. They will support you with what you're trying to achieve and how the best way to go about that will be for you and your group. So it's a really, really useful thing that's out there, and we can send you the link to the information on that afterwards if that's something that you think would be of benefit for you. Another thing that Google do is YouTube. So we spoke at the start there about telling your story, and telling your story is of huge value and huge importance. And so YouTube is owned by Google. And so in addition to their Google Ads grant for not-for-profits and community organizations, they also have this a YouTube advertising system in place. So very much similar to the ads grant, they have a functionality where you can put your ad. So probably you've seen on YouTube when you're watching a video, there's an ad slotted in, and and that can kind of disrupt your train of thought, and you might click skip ad, or you might stay and see what somebody's doing, and then you might click through to their website. There's obviously a fee that they're paying to have that ad targeted to you. Well, for community groups and not-for-profits, Google allows you to do this all for free, and they will let you have a click through to your website. So again, this brings it right back to the value of having your website, because you're sending traffic, you're sending people right back to where your message is, where you have built up your digital authority and credibility, and where you're providing all of the value to your audience and your customer journey. Well, depending on which people you're talking to. So if it's your funders, you're providing the information for them. If it's people you're looking to have volunteer or connect with you for that, or if it's your service users. So you can drive all of the traffic. If you're doing stories and you want to tell your story in a video way, this is a really, really useful thing to be aware of. So back to strategy. What is it we're really trying to do? Well, you want to define your goals and your strategy. You want to reach your growing audience. You want to act. You want to convert and engage. So the planning stage, we said we had to be really strategic. We need to be smart about it. We have our SMART goals. So we're going to be strategic. We're going to action them. We're going to measure everything and look at the data, look at the stats, and that will then inform our strategy, where we're going, with what message, with what platforms we're showing up on, how we're going to reach people. We're going to grow our audience. If you want to be reaching more people and engaging people, so we spoke about post to plan. There's other tools there as well for scheduling and automating social media. But with those tools, so an example of one would be Publer, that's another low-cost tool. You can automate your follow-up comments. You can automate different aspects of how you're connecting with your audience, which is going to grow your audience. It's going to grow your reach, and also it's doing it on autopilot, so you're free to concentrate on other stuff. So convincing your audience. So we want to connect with the people that you're telling your story to, connect with that audience and convince them of what you're doing adds value, and that they should come on board and engage with what you're doing. Convert them. So, well, this funnel example says turn them into sales. So for us in the third sector here, that means turning this audience of people that we've been nurturing and connecting with online into whatever that is that our goal was. So if we're following the customer journey, we want them to be volunteers. How does that look? What are we doing specifically to speak to people that we want to volunteer with us? How do we speak specifically to people that we want to engage with as service users? And how do we speak specifically to the people that we would like to hopefully fund us? And how are we going to convert those into those three things? Once we've engaged people, we're going to go back to our automation and go through this flow again. So when I say automate, what I would say is we need to look at systems and things that we could put in place and we can replicate, so that we can free up our time to concentrate on other things. So let me just go back to here. A lot of the things that we can automate are our social media, our emails, are scheduling things out to our Google My Business account. And if you have any questions about any of that, we'll jump into that shortly. And once we have our automations in place, then we don't need to worry about it. So MailChimp is a really popular tool. It's a free email marketing tool there's a free platform. And that's why I think most people know about it. So you could be setting up your emails within MailChimp, or there's other software out there like Sendinblue is another really great tool also, and it's probably more robust than what MailChimp do, but it's lesser known. So we could set up our emails, we could automate those emails to go out based on if somebody signs up on our newsletter, they're going to connect with us, follow through with we'll follow back with an email. We will then put them into like an automated sequence of nurturing that relationship with them and following through with different email sequences that we had pre-written. And that's really important. So automation is great, but it does take some work at the start. You need to think really clearly about what is it this message is, what are we tracking, what are we doing? So if we are saying, thank you for subscribing to our newsletter, great, that's job one done. But then what do we want to do after that? How are we going to craft and curate the sequences that happen after that? What are we trying to communicate? What are we trying to what steps and actions are we trying to get them to take? So like how we saw that call to action example on the website, we need calls to action in our emails, and even if they are pre-written, canned emails. And I've often had conversations with people where they said, no, I absolutely do not want to automate emails because it's not personal. You can make automated sequences feel very personalized, which is great, but that shouldn't be the obstacle or barrier to you to growing your online presence and growing your message and connecting with more people and adding value. How are we doing? Does anyone have any questions so far? Let me see.
There's one or two in the chat box there, or the chat function, Meg.
Yeah.
Can you see those, or do you want me to call them out to you?
No, I've got them up here now. Let me just check them out here. So we've got scroll. So we've got loads of no's for our digital strategy and digital things being implemented. Common issues. So you can't be on every platform, don't have capacity to monitor. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and we need to move to the latest platforms or stick to the original big ones. So Amy, that's a great question. There's no right or wrong answer. What I would say is you need to look at who it is you're talking to. And I could totally get that trying to keep on track of all of the different channels can be such a headache. That's one of the reasons why I would recommend Post to Plan, because it has a centralized inbox. So if people are messaging your Facebook page or messaging your Instagram, at least then when you log into one dashboard, you only have to see emails from one place. I think they are working on functionality to bring in messages from other places, but for the moment, that's all that's on that dashboard. TikTok, again, TikTok is great, but if your audience and the people that you're trying to connect with aren't on TikTok, then I would say don't jump on something for the sake of jumping on it. I see this often. It's what I term like the spaghetti effect, where we have like this big bowl of spaghetti and we see all of these social media things and we like throw the spaghetti there and we just see, well, which one's going to stick? And that's not strategy. That's not what it's about. So this is back to our building blocks. If we start at the foundation level, and if you have a digital strategy already, it's about going right back to basics and re-examining it. And if you don't have a digital strategy in place already, well, happy days, because this is the time to invest your time and go create it. So look at who it is you're trying to talk to and where they show up. So if I think you said there, you do Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. So if that's where your audience are and it's working for you, then great. But if you see that actually there's a lot of your audience on TikTok, for example, because you mentioned it, that doesn't necessarily mean that you yourselves have to be showing up on TikTok and putting loads of content out there. It also doesn't mean that the things that you're doing on these places that are working for you can't be used. So when I'm working with people, I often encourage people to make videos, because videos are what performs really well at the moment on Facebook and with all of these digital algorithms. And often I come up against a bit of a barrier, or people say, oh, I don't know about videos. But if you create a video, and this is what a lot of people, they don't think through because we haven't put the strategy in place. If you start your content creation journey with one video, so that might be the video that you're planning on putting on your TikTok. It could be anything. If you start your message and telling your story or communicating that piece of value for your audience with a video, you can split that then. So what do I mean by that? Well, I mean, you could, from your one video file, and just as a caveat, I nearly always would recommend when you're making your videos to record it in landscape, because it gives you more scope then to crop it for other, for other platforms. So if you can avoid recording it in portrait, that's great. But if you have to record it in portrait view on your phone, done is better than perfect, right? So once you make the video, you can then use that one video to create hundreds and hundreds of other pieces of really valuable content that share your message. So how do you do that? Well, you can use your video to put up, say, for example, on your YouTube channel, and that's furthering your digital presence, your digital footprint. You can use a free tool online. If you just Google audio, like YouTube video audio removal, there's tools online that will extract the audio from your video. Or if you've got the audio file and you're good at tech, you can spit the audio out yourself. But if you don't want to get into all that tech stuff, there's free tools online. You just drop the video file in there. And next of all, you can download the audio. So, well, what does that mean? That means suddenly now you've got two pieces of content that are more accessible maybe to other people. Maybe somebody only wants to listen to the audio. Maybe they want to listen to it as a podcast, or maybe they want to listen to it while they're, driving their car or doing the laundry or whatever. They now have it as a video and audio file. You can take from the audio and convert that all into text. And now I know it's a little bit different with text, because how we speak in spoken language can be different to how we would write things. But we have the body of a message that maybe we just need to tweak and refine. And then suddenly this video has now become a blog post. And you can extract quotes then from that. And you could use that for little quote pieces that you're going to post on your social media. That could, like, from one video, that could be hundreds of different pieces of content or spoken word. You could use that audio file that you've got now to maybe do as a voiceover for if you're doing something, if you're telling the story of what you're doing, if you're showing an event that you've been working on, or some behind the scenes footage, you might use the audio file and drop it in over, some just footage of what it is that you're doing. And that's a whole new video then that you can still reshare and repurpose. So while it might feel really daunting to be on all the social media channels and platforms, if you're using a scheduling tool, you can use this content, this one piece of content that you've created and then diversified in multiple ways, and you can push that all out on your different social media platforms. And you don't have also got that overwhelming sense of, oh my goodness, now I have to create all of this content. Now I have to go figure out, what I'm going to write for this, or what I'm going to do for, Instagram versus Facebook. And what I would say is, if you're using a scheduler, and even if you're not, when you're posting something, try not to post the same thing on all your channels at the same time. So if I'm somebody that follows you on Instagram, for example, I don't really want to open Facebook and see exactly the same thing there at exactly the same time. But that doesn't mean I don't ever want to see it again. And this is what we would call evergreen content. So it's content that maybe isn't going to date or not be, of value to somebody at a later date. It's stuff that you can keep in a rotation. And if you were doing this content creation piece of, using a video to create multiple different assets for your organization, you can put things in rotation. So it's not one and done and of no value ever again. You can switch things out. You can put them on with post to plan. You could set up automations where it'll just revolve around. You could say, well, schedule something to repost itself, in 6 posts time, or, post this every 4 weeks, whatever it is that works for you. And that's something that I don't see a lot of people doing, is repurposing the content that you've got. There's so much pressure on people to try and create new and give new value, that often we are sitting on archives of really, really valuable stuff that we're just completely overlooking. And then just to say about your TikTok, you could post that video over on your TikTok, and you probably have seen that anyway on Instagram. Actually, Instagram, we're trying to clamp down on that. So just to be aware of that. People are posting on TikTok and downloading the video and then posting that to their Instagram reels. But if you download your video from TikTok, it has a little TikTok watermark on it, and Instagram don't like that because you're promoting a different platform. So there's ways around that. And they are definitely clamping down. They're pulling videos off the platform from people, from creators and businesses and groups that are putting out stuff with the TikTok branding. So it hasn't been rolled out across all accounts. I'm still seeing people with the TikTok thing on their Instagrams, but just to be aware that that could potentially mean that your video is pulled. And if that's something that you put up there that maybe you got a lot of engagement on, it'd be a real shame to have it pulled because it broke Instagram's rules. So one way around that is people are using their phones and they're tapping like screen record. So they're playing the video that they've made in TikTok and recording their phone screen. Either, it depends on your phone. Some phones will allow you to do that. Some phones you'll need an app like one's called V Recorder. So someone will use the app then to record the content without this watermark and then post it on Instagram, which all sounds quite convoluted, which is back to why I would say start your journey with just a simple video, a video that you're creating on your phone yourself or on your camera yourself, and then distribute that to whatever channels that way that you want, rather than creating it initially in TikTok and then trying to go through all these extra steps of removing watermarks to make it of value and something that can perform without risk of being removed on other platforms. I'm going to just check some more questions here. Did that answer that for you, Amy? Is there much difference between Post2Plan and Asana or Publer? So Asana is a project management tool, and I love Asana. Asana would be very similar to another tool called Trello. So if you're familiar with Asana or Trello, they're both kind of the same thing. Post2Plan and Publer, they are content scheduling tools. And they are tools that will allow you to automate your processes, so you don't have to be remembering and keeping that stuff in your head. So like, oh gosh, I have to post that on Instagram now, or I need to do something over on Facebook. What I would always say about scheduling things is scheduling is great, but I would never encourage someone to schedule things to Twitter unless it's something that's kind of evergreen and generic that isn't going to date. The trouble with Twitter is such a fast-paced platform that if something happens, like a world event or a catastrophe happens, sometimes, and I've seen it, sometimes things that you scheduled can actually be really inappropriate suddenly, or not relevant because of, I don't know, world events. So maybe save scheduling to Twitter if you can, or if you're just posting like a generic post about visiting your website or joining your newsletter or things like that, schedule away. But the value pieces and the pieces where you're kind of telling your story, I wouldn't encourage you to post on Twitter. Post2Plan or Publer, both are really great tools. Post2Plan I like for groups particularly because it's a one-off fee. I think it's about $50, and you don't have to worry about then monthly bills. And it's a great tool that has lots of platforms. And what I particularly like about it for groups is that groups often, well, the groups that I've worked with often use WhatsApp for communication, and Telegram is another one. And with Post2Plan, it's one of the few scheduling tools, particularly at this price point, where you can schedule out messages to your own WhatsApp groups. So maybe you have a group with all of the committee members. You can schedule out reminders, or you can schedule out little updates or things like that, or agendas for upcoming, schedules for upcoming meetings or little agenda things. You can do all of that from within Post2Plan, which you can't do from some of the other platforms. I'm not a user of Telegram, but I'm told it's good for Telegram too. As time moves on, we find people have to do many different aspects of other jobs too. Would a successful campaign mean that one person should dedicate all their time to these platforms? So to this, I would say it's really, really vitally important that there's there's opt-in and buy-in from everybody on the team, but that's not to say that everyone on the team has to do the implementation, but everyone has to see and be on board with why you need a digital plan, why you need the strategy, why you need to be showing value, telling your story and connecting with your audiences. To implement and roll it out, I would say it's not great to put all your eggs in one basket and just put it all on one person. If it is all up to one person, that's fine. But I would say, you know, other people in the group should know at least how to log into the platform that you're using, or how to make a post. Because again, if something happened, like we've all seen with this like terrible pandemic going on, you just don't know if you're gonna get sick. And you don't want then for everything to be on one person's shoulders, that if they're not in a place where they can, you know, do your social media, or where they can be fulfilling these duties, what you don't want is for your message or your campaign that you're running to just like grind to a halt. That would not be good for your brand, for your visual presence, and for that whole community engagement piece. So one person to implement things is fine, but others should at least be aware of the processes and the campaign, and everyone should be bought into the rationale behind it and the value of having this digital campaign and strategy. If you embed Twitter or Facebook posts into your website, does this affect your SEO? Unfortunately, it doesn't help your SEO. So when you embed posts, often how things are embedded is through, to get like technical, is through what's called an iframe. And that's basically like a window. You're just putting a window onto a page. And I call them the spider robots that crawl your website when they're doing the search for your SEO. They don't see what's through the window. They can only see what's physically on the page. So if you have a window to something else, they'll see, oh, that page has a window there, but they won't register, and they won't value what's through the window, because that's somewhere else. That's not actually on your website. Now, that's not to say that's not a value. So having sorry, there's someone in the waiting room there. Having these things embedded on your site, while they won't help or harm your SEO, they do help you with your message. They do help you with your community building. They help you with your, spreading that information or knowledge with your audience. And also, if it's something like a Twitter embed, like a lot of people have, if you do a blog post, for example, they might have a bit where it says like this little piece, the snippet is highlighted, and it might say tweet this. So you are encouraging then people with that call to action to tweet that little snippet of value, that little soundbite, or, well, not a soundbite because it's written, but that little, snippet of content. And if other people then, take you up on that call to action and they click tweet this, that's growing your footprint, that's growing your message to people that maybe aren't even aware of you yet. So while it doesn't specifically help your on-site SEO, it's definitely not going to harm you in getting your message out there. Posting content daily on social media channels with calls to action, but I'm not getting much engagement back. Where would be a good place to start? So I would say, look at what your call to action is. I see this a lot with people saying, oh, I posted on my page with a call to action, and people, so they might use a call to action, for example, like buy now or learn more or something like that. We are so subconsciously so jaded of hearing these or seeing these, particularly I think since lockdown, and we're spending more time digitally on our devices scrolling, and we see like buy now or donate now or learn more. That's just not going to work. So again, it's back to being specific. So what is it you want them to do? What is this call to action? Like, is it learn more about and then XYZ? So you're really being specific, or donate now to, XYZ, whatever that and it's not, donate now to, I don't know, like this charity. It's you mentioned the campaign, you say exactly what that is, you pique people's interest enough to want to click. And again, this also goes back to the benefits. I sound like a broken record, probably, the benefits of having your own website, because if you get someone interested enough on your social media to click a link through to your website, so maybe that doesn't convert, maybe they don't take the action that you are asking them to take at that moment, but they are helping you still, because if they've been interested enough to go to your website, then the Facebook pixel, which hopefully you will have had installed on your website, and the Google tracking tags that hopefully you have installed on your website, will be able to help you later on if you want to remarket to people. So then if you want to put out a post and you want to show that to only the people that have been on your website, and this is it, this is the whole piece about, we often need to see things like 7 times. I think that was the number when I last checked, 7 times before somebody takes action or before somebody remembers that message. So if you don't be disheartened if somebody doesn't take the action you want them to take the first time, just try 6 more times. And with the and I don't mean like back to back, it's about building that up, and and this is where having that evergreen content can be really useful. So if it's something that you can cycle it and put in a cycle, so you're telling them the message and then you're telling them what the value is, like what do they get out of if they take that action, and then tell them again, well, take the action, and then you have it there. And if they are going to your site and they've clicked your site, you can then target them specifically if you want with if you were, I don't know what the campaign is, but if it was like, if something that you're maybe going to do some sponsored ads on or something, then at least you've got a warm audience. They were interested enough to go there. They may not have taken the action that you wanted them to take, but they were interested enough to go there. So you still got a bigger chance of converting them. So I hope that helps. So judging by what you're saying, you need a tech savvy person with many skills to get your message out there. So text, and I think it's really important to do like a skills audit. So if you are with your group and you have a little conversation, a frank conversation about where people's skills lie, it might be that yes, you need to bring somebody in, but it might be that you can distribute certain tasks and things amongst yourselves. And find that kind of that balance. But yeah, there's no 2 ways about it. Tech is going to be important, but I would say while tech is important, actually people are what's most important, because it's going to be the people that are doing the tasks and the people that you're featuring in the content. The stories that you're telling are going to feature people, and you have the people that are going to be doing the tasks of your digital marketing. And so if the people who are doing the tasks of the digital marketing, maybe they don't have the skills necessarily, but if you've built a really solid foundation, you've created that culture that I spoke about at the start of making people feel supported, even if it's a challenge, even if it's a struggle, that they still know the value in telling that story, of connecting that person on the other side of the camera or the other side of the keyboard or whatever, if you'll be driving it all together. If what I'm trying to say is, if you have somebody that's not really great at tech, that's not to say that they can't do this. It's about having that conversation. If you've created an environment and a culture around somebody feeling comfortable enough to say, I'm not so sure about that, and you can have that conversation, you can get the support. Like the DLDC has been great in supporting groups who maybe need some support in giving, help around tech or getting things up and running, and never be afraid to ask for help from other people, or just to reach out, because what's the worst that can happen is somebody says no, and then you're no worse off. And often you don't get a no. If you ask for help outside of your organization, and this is part of that whole thing about, like, this is what we're trying to do. You're building relationships. So it's more than this focus of, oh, I'm doing a digital marketing strategy and I have to have this number of results and I have to have this many posts and I want to have engagement. It goes beyond that. If you look at who you're trying to talk to, who you're trying to build relationships with, it's not only just going to be the people like your service users or your funders. if you look at building really genuine relationships with other businesses, other groups, you can help each other out. And like, if you're showing up for each other, you know, it will help both of you grow. It will help both of you get your message out. I don't just mean groups either. Like if you're connecting with local business owners and things like that, like what I often see is people saying, I want to do a website. And then they say to me, oh, well, we've built the website now and I'm not getting any traffic. And then, you know, we talk about how do you get traffic to your website, and maybe you need to do some blog posts and things. And then there's like this whole other piece about backlinks, right? So backlinks are where you would link to other things on your website and on to other people's websites. And suddenly this seems like this big, like, oh no, I don't want to be sending people to somebody else's website. But if you put people at the heart of it, if you all work together and you start saying, well, let's have this conversation. I'll maybe do a blog post for you. And you know, that will link back to my website, and you can put one on my website, or I might do an article and I'll mention something that you're doing. That's going to strengthen your digital footprint and your search engine optimization and your reach for both of you. So when you come together and you collaborate and you work cohesively, everyone wins. And again, so to answer the question, you don't need one super tech savvy person, because, well, I'm a big believer in community over competition, and there's room for everybody. You know, one person, it's never going to be all on one person's shoulders. If you work together as a team and you have those open, transparent conversations about where you want to go, what you want to achieve, and how you want to get there, I think you can do it. Can you not just upload the original video to all platforms to avoid the watermark? I think that's about the TikTok thing. So yes, if you have recorded your video on your device, so if you've made it on your phone or on your computer or your camera, you can upload that video wherever you want. That's perfect. But if you've made the video in TikTok, they put a little TT watermark on it, which then is being penalized if you put that on Instagram. So a lot of people were doing this thing where they go, okay, I've made a video on TikTok, now I'm going to put it on my Instagram Reels. And Instagram were like, whoa, hold on, you are now advertising a different platform. And they don't want people jumping off their platform, because these social media platforms, so the Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, they're in the business of making money. They want us on the platforms as long as possible. So they definitely don't want us advertising somebody else's platform with these watermarked videos and sending, you know, people over there. That's why they're pulling the videos from why Instagram are pulling the videos with the TikTok watermark. I think that's panning for gold comes to mind. Okay, I think that's all of the questions there. Does anyone have any other questions at the minute? Or anything you'd like me to maybe dive more deeply into?
No, all good. Meg?
All good. Okay.
Google Analytics, somebody's just come in with there.
Sure, yeah, hang on. Google Analytics. So Google Analytics, oh, what's going on there? Google Analytics is it's so useful, right? And you can see so much of what's going on your site from your analytics dashboard. Right down like to the like most minute detail about, you know, things like you can see what device, like you'll know how many people are accessing your website from like a Samsung smartphone, for example, or an iPhone 14 or an iPhone 8. So you can see as much detail or as little detail as you want. But where it's really, really useful is things like bounce rate. So if you logged into your Google Analytics dashboard, so for anyone who doesn't know what Google Analytics is, actually, it's a tool that's free from Google, and it's a little piece of code that you put in your website. And what it does is it tracks what people are doing on your website, and then gives you a report with all of these statistics about what's going on, where your traffic is coming from, what time people are on your website, what pages they've been on, where they were before, which is really, really useful. So you'll see what their journey was to get to your website. You'll see where they, for example, maybe they were on the DLDC's website and then they clicked a link there and they ended up on your website. So you'll see that that's where that traffic came from. Or if they typed into Google, to find you and they came from there. So that's a really useful piece of information. You'll also see how long they spent on your website or on a particular page and where they went after, like if they closed out the page or if they followed a link that you've got on your site and went somewhere else. So lots of really, really useful information in there. Bounce rate is really useful too. But often that's the one thing I see that most people misinterpret. So bounce rate means the time that somebody spent when they got on your website to the time that they left. And generally a good bounce rate would be approximately in the 40% region. That would be considered pretty good. But it's all relative. So for example, I had somebody contact me the other day and they had a bounce rate of like 89%. And they were in this like panic station about, well, why is everyone going on my website and leaving? But actually it wasn't 89% on the website. It was 89% on one page. And this is where I would say to you, again, be really, really clear about your message. So if you are either creating a website or you're updating your website, have a really clear focus about what the goal of each page is. What do you hope to achieve? So for this poor lady whose bounce rate was 89%, that was on her contact page. So of course that's going to have a high bounce rate. Why? Because people are getting the information that they want really quickly and leaving. So they wanted to get obviously her phone number or her email address, and they went onto the page, they clicked the contact tab, or they landed on the contact page and got the information and then just left. So that's going to be high and no cause for alarm. Whereas if you have that on, say, your homepage or your main landing page, then you would know, geez, there's something really wrong with the message that we're communicating here. It's not resonating with people. They're not staying long enough on our page, and we need to look at why. The other great thing about it is it can help you make really smart data-driven decisions without that kind of emotional connection. And I see this is really useful as well sometimes when working with organizations and groups where maybe there's a lot of people who have a decision, an opinion, and they want to be part of the decision-making process. So how that might play out is your call to action button, which I definitely recommend you have up at the top of your page with the main action that you want people to take. But maybe somebody wants that, for example, to be green, and you think, okay, fine, we'll make it green. And then you can see that maybe the website's not working great or not many people are taking action on that particular button. And so you can say, well, maybe we'll look at tweaking things. We'll make some changes and see, does that affect the user's experience on our website? So maybe you decide to change the button to yellow, and suddenly that button gets more clicks now that it's a yellow button rather than a green button. It can be really hard in a meeting with people to say, oh, I think the button needs to be yellow, and that will work better. And people say, why? I want it green. But if you can go back with your stats from your Google Analytics account and say, well, here's the stats for green and here's the stats for yellow, and this is why yellow, why it needs to be yellow, because yellow is resonating more with the audience that's coming to our website and they're taking the action that we want them to take. There's no room then for emotion. There's no room then for people to get, upset or feel like, their ego's being trod on. So Google Analytics is great for making really smart data-driven decisions without that kind of whole emotional connection to, oh, I just really like the design, or I really like the layout. You can see very clearly in, I was going to say black and white, but Google's mostly blue and white. You can see very clearly what is going on and work to fix things. So another example would be, you might notice trends like your website's doing really well, people looking at it on a desktop or a laptop, and it's doing well on a tablet, but you notice on a mobile it's got a really high rate of bounces, and then you can tell then that, well, that section maybe isn't working great on a mobile. And you can go down, drill down even further into that, so you can see then, well, it's mostly you know, whatever brand of mobile compared to another brand of mobile. So then you can say, well, there's an issue here that maybe we need to fix or we need to look at. So you can optimize then the conversions or the actions that you want people to take, and the time spent on your website. Does that answer the Google Analytics piece? I'm procrastinating on the website because it's such a lot of work to compile and organize. Have you any advice on how to restart smaller and maybe build up once it's launched? I'd appreciate some advice. Yeah, oh God, no, please don't throw your laptop out the window. I don't want to be responsible for any digital disasters this morning. So sound advice, what I would say is I actually have a worksheet which I'd happily send anybody over about how you can plan your, like the layout of your website out from, you know, if you're starting out or even if you're kind of doing a reboot. So if you want that, drop me or Margaret an email and I'll arrange to send it over to you. But what I would say is, look at exactly who you want to talk to. Who is this website for? And if it's a thing that it's for many people, like maybe like the other examples of maybe it's for, you know, you want funders to be able to see parts of it, or maybe you want volunteers, or maybe you want your service users or audience. Who is it for? Break it down. And if it is for multiple people, then they're going to be siloed into sections themselves. And I find that when you really break things down, that hopefully reduces that anxiety that you have about the website, the content, and all of that piece around like the breadth of the amount of work that needs to happen to pull this off. So firstly, figure out what your message is. Who's it for? Who do you want to speak to? And also I would say what was crucial is to have a really, really good about section. So people love stories and people love that connection. Like they want to know, well, what is it you do and why do you do it? And why should I care that you do that? And so telling me and communicating that in a really powerful way is going to, one, keep me on your site longer and keep me more engaged, but it's also going to then make me more interested to see more. I will probably go then and check out your social media. I'll probably go and follow you and engage with you because I have then invested in what you're telling me. I can see that, you know, you really believe in what you're doing. I can see that you add value. And so I'm going to follow that value journey and want to be with you the whole way. I hope that makes sense. So what else do you need to do? So your about section. What I would say as well is people get really caught up about the homepage, and your homepage and actually your whole website, it doesn't need to be perfect because it's not finished ever really. And I know when I say that to people that I work with, they like nearly fall off the chair because they go, what do you mean it's never finished? What I mean is it's a bit like when you build your house, right? When you build a house, you're never actually done because you decide then, oh, actually now I want to repaint the living room, or maybe now I'll just update the kitchen. Your website is no different. It should be something that is living and breathing, for want of a better analogy. It's something that should grow. It's something that you should actively participate in. There's nothing worse than going onto somebody's website and seeing that it hasn't been updated, or it hasn't been, like, they haven't done anything to engage with the people that like are interested enough to go there. You know, it's something that is, it's an asset that you need to really leverage. It's something that you need to be invested in. So it's not one and done. And your homepage doesn't need to be like this source of anxiety about having this beautifully curated content that's always going to be static. You can have things like feeds. So if you're an organization that is going to be putting up content like blog posts, and I don't even like calling them blog posts because I see now a lot of people go, oh, I don't want to be blogging. Forget the word blog. If you want to be telling people about what you're doing, if you want to share your message, or you want to add value, or you want to tell people, you know, this is a solution for this, or here's a handy checklist so you can, you know, do whatever or arrive at this solution faster. If you want to give any piece of value to the people you want to connect with, one, you need to do it on your website, and two, you can have all of that as a feed throughout your website. So you don't have to worry about, oh God, now I've posted that and now I need to update the homepage. That can all happen automatically. So you just have to worry about putting the content up there or connecting the value piece with your audience. I feel like I'm probably leaving out part of your question here. Any other advice on building abundance sauce? So once it's launched, that's it. It's about then coming back and adding the value and adding in the blog posts or the news articles. And it doesn't even have to be like long format blogs. You can think creatively. You can think about doing checklists or like little printables or handy guides. It can be as much or as little as you want. But if you are adding to your website, what happens is the search engines like Google, like Bing, like Yahoo, they see that, well, this organization is interested enough to actually be still working on their website. They're adding content, they're adding value. And so what they're going to do is they're going to keep coming back, these spider robots that I call them, that keep coming back, they'll keep indexing your site, they'll keep trawling it and then improving your ranking, improving your search ability on search engines, which is what you want, right? You want to improve that digital presence. Brie, I hope I answered that, but if I didn't, just let me know. A few more smiley faces would be welcome. Okay, can anyone who has, okay, the answer to Finton's question too. Oh, sorry, did I miss the question? Let me scroll up. Is it possible to overdo social media? How much is too much? Yeah, absolutely. So generally with social media, what I would encourage you to do is, again, back to your strategy stage of things, is to look at what your message is and how you're going to communicate it. And then kind of build out around that. So what I would recommend is 1 push and 2 pull. So for everything that if you're posting something and you're saying, you know, with a call to action and you want them to take an action, that's the pull. So if you're posting 1 pull, you should have like two value pieces or 2 pieces that are relevant to things in your industry or things that, you know, are going to interest and excite and engage your audience, but you're not making a request from them. Again, in terms of posting frequency, there's differences on different platforms. So with Twitter, obviously you could sit there and post all day because it just moves so fast. With Instagram and now with like Twitter stories and Facebook stories, you can post there as many times as you want in the stories section. And then I would say if you're someone that Instagrams, I would say try and do a few posts a week, but either in the grid, a couple of posts a week would be good. Facebook posts on Facebook pages. I was working with someone recently and they were posting 5 posts a day on Facebook, and I honestly and they weren't automating anything. So I don't know how they were sustaining that, but it wasn't working. It was getting just buried because what ultimately was happening was people were so fatigued at seeing these 5 posts every day from this group. So, and this is a challenge that I sometimes see, if you have multiple people involved in managing your Facebook page. I'll use Facebook because that seems to be where most people will do this. If you have multiple people managing your Facebook page and you don't have this communication structure where you're saying, I'm going to post something today at whatever, and sometimes you end up with like everybody posting something in a very short time frame, which it just gets lost, and you may as well have not have posted anything. So this brings me back to why it's so beneficial to use those scheduling tools. So you can see that, you know, maybe there's 3 of you that have posting permissions in the scheduling tools, and you can sequence things. You can see, well, okay, there's already a post scheduled for Facebook at 2 p.m. on Thursday, so I'm not going to post something at 2:15. I might post something at a time then that's relevant to my audience. And again, this circles me right back to looking, if you have a website, at looking at your Google Analytics, because you can see what times exactly your traffic is coming to your website. You can also see what times your posts on your Instagram and things are most engaged with. So looking at the data, looking at your analytics is really crucial, because if you see on your analytics on your website or on your Instagram data or whatever that your audience is mostly active on Thursday afternoon at 3 p.m., then post when they are most active. Don't start posting at like Friday morning at 6 o'clock in the morning or 8 o'clock in the morning when they're not going to be there. And similarly, the analytics for your Google is really useful because you can see if you've posted something on your social media, or you've spoken about an event, or you've done something, you'll be able to see very clearly, how did that convert to traffic to your website? Did people go over there after you posted that video on social media? Did they take that action? And so it all becomes one ecosystem. So that's what I would recommend for that. But is it possible to overdo social media? In a word, yes. So be strategic and really communicate with other people that are posting as well on your profiles. You might have already. So Instagram tips, Twitter and Instagram followers. Again, I would say this is really back to building that human connection. So I've seen loads of people who've gone out and they've seen these things like on Fiverr where you can buy followers or you can buy engagement, and they guarantee that you're going to get like X number of followers overnight. And I would say don't ever do anything like that. And also don't be like, there's like these things like I've seen recently, follow ladders, where, you know, maybe people get together in a group on Facebook and they say, I'll like your page and you like mine on Instagram, and then we'll go like that person's. That while that works for boosting your numbers, I would call it just vanity metrics. You don't want your numbers to go up in a way that isn't meaningful, in a way that isn't relevant to your audience, in a way that isn't going to convert and make and strengthen what you're doing. So if you are following people for the sake of it, or if you're asking people to follow you, but really you know that they're not who you're actually speaking to, what you're actually doing is you're just diluting down your own chances of success, essentially. So I would much rather to have a small number of really engaged people. And this also goes as well for your email list. So again, people get caught up with like, oh, we have an email list of like 10,000 people, but how many people open those emails? What's your click-through rate? There's no point in focusing on that end number if that number isn't actually converting for you. You need to pare everything back and look and focus on, you know, building relationships and growing the true number. And so for growing your Instagram and Twitter followers, I would say that really involves you or your group showing up. You cannot underestimate the power of being real, sharing your story, sharing what is going on with, you know, behind the scenes things or like real stuff. Share your message. And when you do that, the people that are actually invested, the people that you really, really want to connect with will start to come and your numbers will start to grow. I hope that helps a bit. And again, engagement. So like, you can't expect your numbers to go up if you're not also engaging with other people. So show up for other people, show up and leave comments, show up and, you know, like posts, because again, it's that journey, isn't it? Like if you're leaving this digital footprint. So if I read a post on somebody else's page and I see a comment from you and it's an interesting comment or it adds value, I'm more inclined then to go, oh, well, I wonder what else they had to say about that. Or I wonder what's happening over on their page. And I might click through, see all this value, see what you're doing on your page, and then be more inclined to convert into a follower. So it's about that whole thing that I had said on the slide about being consistent. Consistency is key, and that human element, like don't underestimate building relationships. And again, that comes back to, if you build relationships with people, there's more opportunities out there. Like you might collaborate, you might do a post for each other that will strengthen both your digital presences. You might, you know, need support with something and maybe they'll help you with that. You just never know where that may go. So yeah, and also just on Instagram specifically, there is a thing, and a lot of people don't realize it. So there's a thing about the hashtags, right? So if you search a hashtag, like let's say I'm in Kilcar right now, so let's say hashtag Kilcar, you'll get whatever people have posted for that specific hashtag, right? But if you get really strategic, you can start ranking for a certain hashtag. So what that means is if you were to type in now on your phone, hashtag Kilcar, you'll see a little circle, and that's the profile of the top person who's posted and tagged hashtag Kilcar in the most posts on Instagram. And so you're kind of shortcutting a route straight to that person, to that page, to that profile, because they are the most prolific person in that domain, in that hashtag. So if you can think creatively, if you can think of showing up in a hashtag space where people are and adding value, you have the opportunity then to rank for that hashtag, and more people will come and see your content too. What I would say on Instagram is when people are posting hashtags, like you can use 30 hashtags in a post, and I see this all the time. People go, oh, well, I'm going to click this hashtag because this hashtag has 1 million other people using it, or I'm going to click this one because it has 2 million people using it. And I would say, think hard about that. You get 30 hashtags to use, and I don't encourage you to use all 30. So try kind of keep it maybe 15 on Instagram. And don't go for the big ones. Don't go for the ones where there's, 1,000, 1 million other people have clicked that hashtag. And the reason for that is the exact same reason of why I say don't schedule your Twitter, because the hashtags that have this turnover of 1 million tags has a higher amount of traffic. There's a bigger churn. So you are never really going to have an opportunity to rank as well as you could for a lower hashtag, a hashtag that has a lower number of impressions. So if you put some strategy in place there, so instead of going after the hashtags with the millions and millions of people who are using it, go for somewhere in the middle. Go for the ones that maybe have a couple 100,000, because what's happening there is there's a slower churn. The grid that exists for that particular hashtag is static longer than the one with the bigger number. So you are going to be on the grid for people searching for that particular query or that particular thing for a longer period of time. And that means more, more visibility for you, the opportunity for more engagement, the opportunity for more growth. So that's something I would definitely recommend. You might already have covered this, but any tips? Oh, sorry, what's the best way to analyze your social media? Any best tools? I noticed on Facebook it seems to use specific time for some reason. We're trying to build up a new audience, so not sure when's best to post. So your tools for so it depends on if you're using a scheduler or not. Some of the schedulers will give you an analytics analysis on how your posts have performed. So if you are somebody that maybe is only on Instagram, for example, Post to Plan is a good tool for that, and will give you loads of data. But again, they only do Instagram. Post to Plan, I think do give you the data. I'm just not 100% sure on that. I think they do give you the data, or else I saw that was in the pipeline of coming. I think with Facebook, they did used to do international standard time, but I did notice also that mine's gone to Pacific as well. So I have to keep a world clock on my desktop so I can check things over. We're trying to build an audience, not sure when's best time to post. So your best, if you are using your Instagram, for example, you'll see in there that there's analytics in your Instagram app, and you'll be able to see the time that people are engaged with you on Instagram. If you have a website, I would say have a little look at the analytics there and check your traffic there. And then what I would say, depending on what kind of content you're posting, have a look at what other people are doing on Facebook and what kinds of times they're posting, and see what their engagements are like. So it's a little bit of kind of reverse engineering strategy on that, and seeing, how things perform. For some, it's a kind of a bit of trial and error to see, if you post something and does it perform. That doesn't mean it was a rubbish post. So don't be disheartened if you post something and you think, this, I put loads of time and effort into this, it's a great post, and then it kind of falls flat. If that happens, it's quite possible it just wasn't the right time. And you can tweak things and refine things. So I would say, again, if something doesn't work, people have to see your message 7 times before that really resonates with them. So don't be afraid to repost something the following week or a couple of days later at a different time, and see, does it get any more engagement? I would say as well, make sure that when you're posting things that, you can tag people at the bottom of a post. So you probably have seen like the little blue on Facebook, the little blue, if you do an @ symbol, you can tag other businesses or whatever, and make the most of that. Like, again, back to community, back to collaboration, tag other businesses or other groups that you're kind of working together on. And if you do that, you're more likely to have your post shared. That's going to increase your reach and your engagement, and you can reciprocate. So it's about helping each other as well as helping your own self grow in visibility online. Gathering content can be an issue, but sharing that task within the same setting from other help can be a bit of help. Yeah, absolutely. So if you share things out, it can definitely be helpful. And like everybody has one of these in their pockets, and you can gather content for anything with your phone, even if it's just like a 2-second video and you think, oh, well, that's going to be nothing now. You can weave these little videos and little clips and content together to do a piece, to tell your story, so even if it's just like little snippets of your day, these all put together can add value. So don't underestimate anything that people can do. Like if it means making a call and saying to somebody, hey, can you, I don't know, get a video of you closing the door and turning the key at the end of the day, that could be a really powerful way to end a message in a campaign that you're putting out there, that you're, wrapping up, or, you've done something and now that's, you're ready. It can be anything. So you can be working on building up bits of content, and you might not have your end goal in mind. You might not have something ready for that piece of content just yet, but if you have an opportunity to capture something or to save something, always take the opportunity, because it's so much better to have something and not need it than to go, oh shoot, wouldn't it have been great if we had got like a 2-second video on that, or wouldn't it be great if we had that and we missed that opportunity. So again, then just on being really organized, I would say keep your content in organized folders on your computer, and maybe back things up to the cloud. I know a lot of people use Dropbox to do backups, but it can be really costly. There's a really good free alternative called Mega. If you Google Mega, it's pretty much exactly the same as Dropbox. In fact, I would say it's a little bit more secure. They have extra security verifications that you have to go through to log in, which is good because it's data and we want everything to be secure. But you get so much more storage space, like way more storage space, and it's free. So particularly if you're going to be making content like videos and things, it's always good to have a backup in case you lose it, and also then it's not clogging up your desktop computers, because they can be heavy files. So keep your files and your structures and things organized, and that will hopefully help curating your content when you're coming back to things that maybe you're reusing or repurposing a little bit easier. How long should you typically leave before resharing the same content, especially things like job adverts? So there's no hard and fast rule about how long you have to leave between cycling things. If it's something that can be repurposed again and again, like if it's evergreen content, like you're adding a value piece of content or a storytelling piece of content, you can cycle that through. So people will do it every month, some people will do it every fortnight, some people will do it every maybe 6 weeks or so. If it's something like you said, like a job advert, obviously that's kind of more urgent and time specific. And I would say there's no harm in cycling that quite regularly. I would stagger how I would post them. So if you're going to post them across different channels, I would say maybe post it on one channel at one time and then stagger it for a little bit later to your Twitter or your LinkedIn account or wherever you're posting that. And then you can do a follow-up the next day in a different order. So you're still keeping in the feed. I would say if you're posting something like that on Facebook, to sandwich something in between. So it's not going to be, if someone goes on your Facebook page or your Instagram page, if you put it in the grid, that it's not going to be, a whole load of posts of the same stuff. And also I would encourage you to make the most of on Facebook, and on Twitter, you've got the pinned post capability. So that's if anyone comes on your Facebook page or your Twitter page, that's the first thing that's pinned right to the top. So that then circumvents that whole need as well of having to reshare things. If people are organically coming over to your social media profile, if you have a post pinned to the top, they're going to see that first. Now, I don't mean that to replace your posting schedule, but it's another bite of the cherry. You have it there for them to see if they're traffic straight to your page. Any other questions? Are we're really running out of time.
I was going to say, Meg, you must be exhausted. Makes it just listening to you.
No, I'm sorry about our technical poll difficulties at the start, but sure.
No, that was absolutely so much information. Oh my Lord, so much information. You're very much an expert in your field, I must say. Compliments to you. That was excellent. Meg, if you could share the templates that you referred to, maybe with me, and I'll share them with everybody in the room, if that's okay.
That's no problem. Yeah, I'll pop that over to you when we're finished here. So anyone who wants it's like a template for kind of planning out what you need to do for your website and stuff. No problem.
Perfect. That's brilliant. Meg, I don't think there's anything else in. A lot of compliments coming through the chat box. There was an excellent presentation and well done. And thank you very much. And we might pick up with you again maybe later in Q3 or Q4, just for people have time to digest what we learned today, and we'll come back and revisit later in the year. But thank you very much, Meg. That was excellent. And thank you to everybody for coming along to today. I'm sure there's a lot of learning and a lot to digest. So thank you very much.
Great. Thanks everyone for joining us. And I really enjoyed speaking to you today. So yeah, if anyone has any questions or anything, do feel free to pop me an email. My business is Megificent Creative. My email is meg@Megificent Creative because I love a good pun. So it's magnificent, not magnificent. And I'll be happy to get back to you.
Thank you very much. I'm going to stop recording now. Have a nice afternoon, everyone. Bye.